I want to make sure we use your time efficiently and effectively. Unfortunately for me, I need to walk out at 2:45 instead of 3 o'clock or limp out. So I'm going to have to get out for another appointment. But nonetheless, I still think we have plenty of time to have a discussion. And you had the digital draft copy of the strategic plan up for a little more a week, I guess now. We'll leave. It obviously will be there with your opportunity to provide feedback to us through the end of the month, at which time, obviously, we're going to try to bring this to a close and complete the process so that we can, your chancellor can begin to provide that information to the system. He is now looking at trying to make appointments with the president and several of the vice presidents so that he can present our plan to them, and then from there have them approve that, take it from there on to the Board of Trustees in June. So what we want to provide you is an opportunity to discuss, obviously, aesthetics, how it looks, how you feel about it, and any other things that we need to tweak. There are obviously some things that have not been completed. As you go through there, pretty much the goals and sub-goals, all of that is pretty much done, but there's still some assessment dates and things that need to be completed in that we will be doing over the next couple of weeks to get this in place. And so with that, basically, I'm going to be quiet and let you ask questions, and whoever can respond can respond. We've got microphones, so if you do have a question, because we are recording, I'm going to ask that you wait for the microphone to come around to you so that you can speak into the microphone, and we'll have that audible enough that the recording will work when we individuals want to listen to this as a playback. So I want you to recognize that is occurring so that everyone in the room can hear, but also it's recorded at a high enough level that anyone listening to it later would have that possibility to hear it. So with that, now I'll be quiet. I think I've done all of the little first things I need to do. Questions, comments? Hang on just a second, we'll get a mic to you. It's going to be a little bit slower, but we'll try to run.
Well, okay, let's start with our values. I wonder about this first statement here. Students are the reason we exist as an institution. It's nonsense. I can't believe that as a faculty or staff that we would all agree to that. When I look out at the world, I see that there are other institutions that define themselves quite differently. For example, one of the most prestigious colleges in the world, All Souls at Oxford, has absolutely no students. They have only faculty and research fellows. From their point of view, a university is about the knowledge we produce. To say that students are the reason we exist suggests, first of all, that faculty are rather incidental. Our research goals are not here at all. And so I wonder, who's telling us students are the reason we exist as an institution? Is it true? Do we want it to be true? I certainly don't.
Comments? Anyone? I would ask the question, what would we be if we did not have students? Because every university is defined in a different way, as you fully admit. Universities define themselves in different ways. And this was not a decision to put that in there based on any one particular view as opposed to what we heard throughout about students first. So are you saying we should perhaps rephrase that and say students come first? But students, in fact, if we have no students on this campus, we have no university. A regional comprehensive university does not exist for the faculty or the staff. If you look at the history of the regional comprehensive, they started as normal colleges. And the purpose was to train individuals that could go out and teach in elementary, junior, or middle school, as they call it now, in high school. That was the purpose for the university. That is how we started, in a sense, as regional comprehensive. So our purpose here is not defined by that one value either. As you look, there are other values there that define who we are. But if you can give me something else that speaks to what you're saying, it's not implying that, in fact, personnel are not important. You're not important. Faculty are important. What we're simply trying to say is our reason to exist is to educate that student. That's why we're here. Comment, Johnny?
I'm trying to get this out coherently. First, I would argue that it's not the only reason we exist, but I think students are a primary reason that we exist, because everything we do, pursuing excellence, creative inquiry, research, engagement with the regional, metropolitan community, isn't just about the community outside the parameters of this campus, but it's about students, not just meeting what they think their needs are, but growing what they think the world is about, growing them to be lifelong learners and learning from them. So I would argue that students are a reason that we exist. It's not our only value, but I think it's an essential value, because if we're not engaging with the students and inspiring them to be all they can be, I know it sounds like a commercial, and also learning from them. I think as our student population continues to grow more diverse, and we work with them in their communities and work with them to solve community and regional problems, we all become better citizens, better learners. And so I would argue it's a fundamental reason that we exist, and it's an important reason we exist, and it needs to be part of our values.
Other comments? That or different comments? Questions?
This isn't a comment on what Joni said, but my name is Joe Wilford. I'm from English and I'm the Associate Dean for the College of Arts and Sciences. And I hate to break from that train of thought, but I had a couple of questions. I'd like to say thanks first of all for the opportunity to hold these sessions. I think discussion is especially important, especially regarding a strategic planning process like this. And so my first question actually has to do with process. I did attend the first strategic planning town hall, or a meeting like this, in the same room on December 2nd. And while Goal 1D appeared in the draft of that plan as it was circulated before the meeting, the goal stated, by the way, that we expand and integrate virtual course delivery methods into the overall educational experience. I never imagined that the intent was to move for the entire general education curriculum to online delivery, such that at least students could complete their gen ed requirements entirely online. I do understand, of course, that we continue to offer courses in the general education curriculum in the face-to-face classroom, but I'll point out too that there was no discussion at the December 2nd meeting of that possibility. However, the strategic planning draft that appeared on December 15th stated the same Goal 1D, but there was a new assessment measure, at least it was new to me, and it stated that students, this is a quote, can acquire general education offered in a virtual environment, and that, quote, a minimum of 1 degree program in each college will be offered virtually, end of quote. Because faculty are responsible for the curriculum, at least according to the faculty handbook, where in Chapter 2 it states, in consultation with academic officials, the Faculty Senate is entrusted by the full faculty to consider, advise, and recommend, among other things, priorities for long-range academic planning. And I assume this is a priority for long-range academic planning, and it seems like a big deal, at least to me. My question is this. Who is consulted, or who might be consulted in the future if we're going to move the entire general education curriculum to an online platform that will pull up alongside the face-to-face general education curriculum? The faculty, as far as I know, weren't a part of the process that led to this assessment measure, this 100% of gen ed being available online. I know that the General Education Committee was not consulted. I know it came up in the Faculty Senate meeting yesterday, finally. I just wonder if you could talk about the process moving forward, the openness of discussion that we might have about online general education.
I'd be more than glad to. Let me first address the chronology. Provost Council met on September 2nd, which was after one of our meetings, and develop all general education curriculum was mentioned, September 2nd. Faculty Senate meeting, our faculty and staff meeting was held, that combination meeting on September the 3rd, also under Goal 3, expand online education and general education courses and strategically identify bottleneck courses across campus. Student Development met on the staff meeting on September 5th when we met with them, and they said develop, expand the opportunity for online learning hybrid classes to increase adult learning. You can go back to the website because all that's there, but I think you ought to know this. Alumni comments about online education. Alumni Council meeting on April 1st, diversify the curriculum with competitive online. Hamilton County Alumni meeting on October 7th, require each student to complete 3 online classes. Knoxville Alumni meeting on November 4th, coordinate classes at UT campuses or coordinate online courses that would transfer easily. Nashville Alumni and Atlanta Alumni meetings on 13th and 14th, more graduate online courses. On October 20th, it was posted on blog and sent out on email, meetings about the dates. On December 1st, we posted the strategic plan draft on a website. It didn't include the assessment table at that point, but we still had virtual environment. On December 4th, the comment box on the website updated the strategic plan and told you that's where you could go for it. We had a link on the page where you could provide us feedback, and the only comment we got back was, to date, one comment. It is about the need for semicolons in the mission statement. I appreciate your concern. There was consultation throughout this entire process. I cannot say any clearer. Every time I stood before a group, I said, this is not my strategic plan. This is our strategic plan. You know, not to be critical, but you can take a horse to water, but you can't make them drink it, Joe. We offered the opportunity. You say we didn't consult the faculty. We had 2 meetings where faculty and staff were offered the opportunity, and if you wanted more, we would have easily scheduled those. We never had a full room, and we offered those at different times on different days to be able to do that. One misperception is it says 100% gen ed. That is not the case, and that is not what is in the draft. It says we will be able to offer a general education in a virtual environment. If we have 129 courses, that does not mean 129 courses will be included. And let me offer context for all the other people that are out of the loop to understand how this occurred. Last week, I had a meeting with the Dean of Arts and Sciences, with David Roush, because the Walker Teacher Resource Center is running and trying to help with curriculum redesign. And we offer what I'll call them camps. Last year we got funding from the university, from the UC Foundation to do that. We provided $5,000 per course, per individual or group of individuals. It's $4,000 being split among the individuals that redesigned the course and $1,000 to operationalize that course. We will be doing the very same thing this spring and in the summer. In meeting with the Dean of Arts and Sciences, we said, we really don't have many individuals from Arts and Sciences in the general ed, and since we were criticized last year because we went and tried to pick some classes and courses, we said this year we'll allow for volunteers. We got none, or essentially hardly any. And so we went to the Dean of Arts and Sciences, where general ed is taught, and asked, can you help us out with this? Now, the Dean of Arts and Sciences got out ahead on our strategic plan, which, hey, it's our strategic plan. We're thinking about implementing. Said, hey, based on the fact that we're going to have the opportunity to look at online and how we do that in a general ed, we need to think about that from a strategic standpoint. Who would like to be involved in curriculum design, redesign? That's how that whole process got started. So if you can tell me a better way, but the fact is we didn't go to specialized groups. We opened this up to everyone to participate. Other than the fact that we went to student development because they had 80-something folks in one room, which is the largest, probably one of the largest groups we had attend because all their folks were there. So I don't want it to sound offensive, Joe, but I mean, we've offered opportunities. Now the question really resides with the faculty to decide which courses are the right courses. How do we make this happen such that this course is impossible? It's impossible to implement in an online fashion because you have to be sitting there with the person to do it, as opposed to this course is being done in an online fashion. I've listened, and I've not gotten into the email string and commented because it's not my place to do that, but I've heard and seen comments that are absolutely not true. People are speaking in hyperbole and actually not knowing the facts. Because I know lab science courses where they're being taught online. And I don't especially wouldn't want to teach my lab science course that way. I was a scientist. I tell you that would be difficult. But so I think now, through this conversation, we've heard from students, we've heard from alumni, we've heard from faculty staff the best we could, we've heard from external partners, and the entrepreneurs in town really are way out in front of us as far as what we're trying to do in education, and who challenged us. And this is how that got in there. But this was not something that just showed up in December. As I said, I've got the chronology here. I said, go look this up. Are we wrong? Do we not know? All the way back to September the 2nd, that began to happen. So I would ask now for the faculty to start that dialogue about can we, shall we, how will we do that? That's where I am.
I understand. Thank you. I'll point out that the department heads in the College of Arts and Sciences were asked to, quote, offer all general education courses virtually.
Was there a follow-up to that to try to straighten that misperception out? Help me out here. I think
there was. Two things. As I look back, I look back. I'll hold this down. To see, because I'm on the steering committee, and quite honestly, I haven't attended every session, clearly. But I look back, and at one point, I want to say it was either September 2nd or 5th, we got feedback that talked about getting all 100% online. Then there was, I know, a meeting, a discussion about that, and then on, I think, October 20th, it said to expand. So when I sent something out, I asked for plans from the faculty. I said, look, we're going to have to do this. It says a minimum of one, but really, our college does 90%, 92% of the gen ed. And so we're probably going to need to have more than one class. And quite honestly, I think there might, degrees. I think there are 4 or 5 degrees that possibly could be that are done elsewhere and done well. So I asked the department heads to, in 2 months, develop a plan or a plan of action for how individual courses in gen ed would get on. And I think I said on there, but Joe probably has the email, and another department head, basically a one-page document sort of laying out what type of sequence, find out who's interested, and then do it, and then talk to the faculty about the viability of an online degree in your discipline, and get me a report by September. Because clearly, with the assessment dates in there, we don't want to start in 2018 to try to get a degree online. And then after a lot of the discussion that you've heard about happened, I went back to clarify, and I went to meet with the provost after that to say, we have these 2 things in here, which is it? And it's just enough gen ed to do that. Right now, I think Tom sent me an email saying, well, we already have an online degree. It's in criminal justice. I said, no, we don't. We have a completer degree. The reason we have a completer is you can't do the gen ed. You can't do the first 60 hours or 41 or anywhere close. So I think, what I was asking is, since we provide most of it, for us to get ahead and to do that. And it seems fairly reasonable. Again, it may be my perspective, and I share this with department heads. I've been at places, Mississippi State, Marshall, Nebraska, East Carolina, who were either early adopters or midstream and grew quite a lot, and that's how they grew. That's how because you can't give access to people who can't come to face-to-face classes, and we're already doing that. We're offering a lot more this summer to try to gain enrollment online. I know I saw John Swanson come in earlier, so he's somewhere here. He and I had a talk about it, and we're going to offer the courses online because, quite honestly, the face-to-face classes we offered in the summer in 1010, 1020, 1030 didn't draw very much because a lot of kids go home. And a lot of people who might want to take classes from us can't come to Chattanooga 4 days a week during the summer, or 5, or during the semester. So I think, I think there might have been some misunderstanding. And again, I saw it in the document itself. At one point it was 100%. And I can't tell you, because I wasn't in those discussions, how it jumped from put the gen ed online to 100% to back to expand gen ed.
If I could, I'll ask my second question, and if I could get it out without being interrupted, that would be terrific. second question is about I know the popularity of online courses, and I'd like to say as a sort of disclaimer, I'm not against online education at all. My first question was really a question about process. And I love the fact that there are all those meetings. I know, however, as the dean pointed out, 90-some-odd% of gen ed is taught in the College of Arts and Sciences. The meetings with the faculty or the department, there hadn't been a discussion of moving gen ed requirements or those courses to an online platform. So that's where I'm coming from. In all the meetings that took place that you rightly documented, what data was used to support the idea that moving courses to an online platform would indeed help, say, our DFW rates, our retention rates? I understand it'll do great things for enrollment numbers and accessibility, and that's terrific, and I'll be the first to lead that charge that we need to do more things like that. But when our state funding formula is such that we are evaluated, rewarded, or punished based on our ability to retain, progress students in a timely manner toward graduation, things like that, what data was shared? I'll give you one quick example of data that I gathered. And to me, this seemed like an ideal case study. In the spring of 2013, there was one English instructor who taught 2 sections of Composition 2 in a face-to-face classroom, and in the same semester taught 2 sections of Composition 2 in a virtual environment, or taught them online. And her DFW rate for the face-to-face class was 7.7%. So 7.7% of the students were not successful in that class. In the 2 sections of the same course but delivered online, her DFW rate was 38%. And so I'm curious about other data that would have been discussed at these meetings that would be driving this push.
Let me ask a question first before we go there. How many times had the individual taught the face-to-face class, and how many times had they taught the online class?
I don't have those numbers offhand.
She has
Anybody provide that information?
Several times.
Several times.
The online class had been taught several times. On the same platform?
Yes.
edX or Coursera? It was taught on Coursera. Don't think so. That was the first time that was ever done on that platform. First time I walked in the classroom face-to-face to teach a course, it was abysmal as far as, I had to add points. Because it was my first time in the classroom. I'm not saying this was her first time in the classroom, but as a first experience in any of those technologies, there's going to be that. I'm not defending that 38, that it wasn't the right thing. I'm just simply saying I've got to look at it from that perspective. The other thing is, are we going to make a decision? Is it an either or? We will either have no DFW rates and no access to that 80,000 students in this region, or is it a and both, but we've got to figure out how we do it best and determine who participates in that and which course it is. Which course it is. My challenge as I look at this, to be quite honest with you, I've thought about this, is what message are we going to send to the population in this area, in this region? Do we want them or do we not? If you work 8 to 5, I'm sorry, we can't provide it for you. We can't provide it for you. But if you can come to us and sit in our classrooms, we'll give you that education. I understand the diminished, in some cases, quality that you might have with a face-to-face versus an online. But I also know there are great online courses out there. There are great online courses. The other thing I have to say from my perspective is my job, you can define it for me if I'm right or wrong, but my job is really to be looking out there at the horizon. And is there a cloud of dust out there? And what's coming over the hill? And the fact is, you know it as well as I do, education is changing in a way. We've got 3-year-olds that can use an iPad better than we can. I've got a 1.5-year-old grandson that can move around an iPad better than I can. I'm not just, that's not hyperbole. It's honest God's truth. I'm going, he's 1.5 years old. How does he do that? And we're getting students like that. So, Joe, my struggle, I appreciate what you're saying. And I'm not discounting it. My struggle is, what are we going to decide we are as a university? And is it one which says, if you can't come to us, that's okay. There's another way you can get your education. If you can't come to us, to our buildings, when we offer classes, well, there's probably another route we need to provide for you. Are we going to say, we will provide you an 8 to 5, and even after 5 way to get general ed, and we will provide you an online way to get some of that. I remember an example given just yesterday in Faculty Senate about an individual who works all day, has 5 children, and needs a gen ed course that she can't get into her schedule. All she lacks is to finish her degree. We're on self-defeaters in that case. I will say one other thing about the formula funding, and I'll be quiet. We are funded on adult learners. Okay, so those individuals, you don't have to be an 18, 19-year-old completing your degree, because in fact the formula fund includes adult learners as a criteria to get points. So you got to balance the DFW rate, the 18, 19-year-old, the on-campus, off-campus, the adult learner. It's a juggling act. How do you make that work? But I think we're all smart enough to figure out something to make that work. Please don't. I'm not trying to sit here and defend. Those are the questions I've been thinking about as I've heard this. I'm thinking, what message do we send? What message do we send to Chattanooga and to our region? And it will be dictated by how we design some of the things we do. I think, Brian, were you going to ask a question?
You can come
Quick.
back to me later.
Oh, okay. Okay. Anybody else?
So one thing we also know, and I'm on the experiential learning task force with Bank too, is that one way that students are successful after college is to have internships and experiential learning. So as we talk about online teaching, I want to find a way not just to say, we are satisfied with you staying at home and working and going to school, because I think it's also a state problem that they're defunding education, making the students pay for it. And so I want to make sure that the conversation is larger than just either online or in the class, because if they do online, we have to have some mechanism for them to do the things we know that make them successful after.
I think you've identified one of those more difficult issues, Rebecca, because if you'll notice in there, it says 100% of our students that graduate will have some kind of experiential learning, internship, practical. How do you do, that's the real, what you're getting at is how do you grapple with this issue that you can't sit at home in your bunny slippers and take all these courses and say you've got a degree, because what we want is someone to have a transcript that has something else on it. I'm not going to hand you just a resume and a transcript to say I graduated. I'm going to say, see the problem I solved, see what I did out in the real world, because I believe that's the value added. For me, that's a differentiator of what we try to do here. We're going to give those people, those students, something beyond the classroom experience, which really, in a way, I hope it gives them a jump up when anybody else applying for that job. Now Brian's going to ask you.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. More. Is this one?
Yeah, it's on. You're on.
Okay. So I guess the question that I have, the difficulty that I have with online is what's the strategic role of it? Are we using online to grow, or are we using online to supplement? I don't really understand where we're going, what the mandate for online is. I can certainly put together online courses. I don't know if that meets the needs of the students that we have, or the students that we will have. And are we planning on growing this, and where are the resources going to come from to do that?
Well, I think you identify a good question, and I don't know that it's necessarily either or supplement or grow. I think we have challenges that we're going to face based on Tennessee Promise. Do I think online will take care of that? I don't know. I don't think online is going to be the savior for any, if we see a real loss in students from that perspective. But at the same time, it may have some effect. But on the other hand, it also has the opportunity to deal with 80,000 students in our region, in our city region, that have not completed a credential. I'm just quoting numbers I've been told. 80,000 students, adult students who have some education but have not completed a degree. And so, not from a growth standpoint, but think about if you could just get a tenth of those to get a credential, complete a credential, and what that would do to their ability to be mobile, to move up in the profession they're in or in the workspace they're in. Like I said, I'm just quoting numbers that I've heard based on studies that have been done about our region and what we've got available as far as students that have not completed a credential. So if that's an accurate number, let's cut it in half. What if it's 40,000? What if it's 40,000 students? I mean, 40,000 individuals who have some college education but not a credential. I mean, the thing we've got to think about is how we do that. And we have issues every year. For example, you take the. Well, let me praise a couple of programs real quick, and then I'll be quiet. The RN to BSN. Everybody read the UTC News this week? See what happened there? RN to BSN ranked 4th out of 400 online nursing programs. 6 out of 400.
I liked fourth better.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm expecting, though, is 4. The 6 is out of 400. Criminal justice was ranked 29. The top RN BSN program in our state, sitting right here. The second best online criminal justice program is at UTC. Don't tell me we can't do it. We've got people who are
PMBA
doing
got
it.
nationally ranked
Yeah.
too.
That's right. So these things are happening, and so, Chris, I'll be quiet.
No, it's all right. I just hope you don't take this personally, but my BS meter's like going crazy. The strategy you're laying out seems to be a strategy for people in the region, not a strategy for the university. I mean, if there's 80,000 people, if there's 800,000 people in the region, if everything's online, why would they choose to do it here? They could do it anywhere. And if we're catering to that group of individuals, how does that support any of the other strategic initiatives we have, like increase the research that we're doing to bring really talented students to campus that we want to work with and want to work with us? I mean, this seems to be in conflict with so many other things that we're trying to do.
Let me see if I can calm your BS meter down a little bit. First off, the focus has been on online. We've not talked about a variety of all other things. So we're just looking at a slice of the pie. And the fact is, those 80,000 students aren't going to make it, but the focus was to say there's an opportunity to address those needs of those students. So this focusing that's the only strategy we got is to address the students. The fact of the matter is, for me, you're right. Our reach will only be about 100 to 150 miles in diameter, probably, when you look at online. That's just the way it works. People typically do it regionally. You could say they can go anywhere else. You're right. But there was a university group of Western governors that decided to get together and do something, and this state gave them, somebody helped me with how much money? Was it $5 million? Yeah, something like how much? $5 million. $5 million to do something in that regard, and you know the way that, you know the reason behind, the motivation behind that. The motivation was because the state universities didn't step up and say, well, we can provide a way for them to do that. I'm not saying the quality of what they do at Western Governors is better than ours. I'm not saying any of those online programs are any better. I'm just simply saying we've not filled gaps where we could fill gaps. We may decide after this plan is over with that online is not producing anything and it's not worthwhile. But we'll never know it until we begin to look at it and begin to make some decisions about trying it and rolling it out. I don't see this happening all at once. It's going to be a slow process. So I don't know how to answer your question. If you look throughout the plan, you will see a variety of goals that we have related to scholarship, growing research. We're in the process of searching for a vice chancellor for research right now because of that very issue of how we engage students, how we engage with our partners in town, because we've got some great research partners in town we could work with. So I'm speaking only to one slice of this whole process right now. It's a much broader process because it talks about financial stewardship. It talks about, stewardship throughout what we do, whether it's human capital or financial. It talks about research. There are any number of things that are addressed in that process. Somebody had a question over here.
When you talk about online the way you are, it's also just a delivery modality. And the student and the learner has the right to decide how they wish to have it. While we may determine that the content isn't best offered that way, if they're choosing to take it at institutions that are as good and some are even more rigorous than we are, well, it may be hard for us to believe, and there are people who we serve in this area, to not make it available and for us to make that decision without consulting that constituency seems to be above and beyond anything that we would look at. We, from a strategic standpoint, should consider. It's kind of like saying that the learner isn't why we're here, there's another reason. While you might not want to feel that the primary reason we're here is for the learner, there's really not another reason for our type of regional comprehensive institution to solely exist. It may not be for the learner alone, but without the learner, we really don't have an integral part of why we would exist. And so the modality of learning, while we might understand as subject matter experts, which members of the faculty in fact are, I don't think on our own we can decide which modality is best for every one of those learners without being aware of all of them and making that as an informed decision.
Other comments?
I think that I've taught online for 5 years prior to coming to UTC, and so there was varying levels of support and agreement and disagreement for how we should use it, and so I wonder if what we're asking for is, who gets to make the decision about how we implement, how much support are we going to receive from the administration for teaching these online classes? Because I can tell you that there's a lot of support for what works well in distance education, but it takes a whole lot more time to put it together. As somebody who right now teaches primarily face-to-face, if you were to say, well, could you turn one of those online and say, how long would you give me to put that together? Because it takes a long time. And do I have the support or resources from either my department, college, or administration to do that?
I think that's the critical question you have to ask because we have folks that are already engaged in it. You can't go record lectures, video record lectures and say I have an online course. If anybody in the room thinks that's the way you do it, you have a misperception because to do it really well, put modules together, you're exactly right. It takes a lot of time up front. And that's one of the reasons that we have this curriculum redesign process. It provides not necessarily to go online because you may just redesign the course in the way you do it and want to go flip. You may want to go hybrid. We meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays we're having a different kind of session out there. You may want to go totally online. So there are a variety of ways, as you well know, that you can do that. But I think the critical factor is, I'll just say it this way, put your money where your mouth is. Because it takes money to make that happen. And I think part of the process we're going through this spring, this entire look at budget rebalancing and how we deal with that, is an area we've got to look at. Are we going to reallocate in a way that would help those individuals that could push us in that area, that would challenge us in that area so that you've got the support? And I'd have to say individuals that, like yourself and anyone else in the room who have done that and knows what is required, has to work with us closely to make sure we don't shortchange that process because we'll wind up, just like Joe mentioned, we'll wind up with classes with 38% DFW, not because the students couldn't do it, but because we provided a bad product. So we need to look at how we do that best. That's a great comment, and so noted. We've got to put the money there.
Is that how you're defining high priority programs? Those that can be successful with online education?
Well, exactly where you're coming from. Is that one of the goals? I'm trying to get my context.
Goal 3, assessment. Align all resources with high priority programs and endeavors. How do you define a high priority program? Is it only a program that can be successful with online education?
No.
So how are we defining high priority programs?
First off, I won't define them. The programs will define themselves.
Meaning
the
what?
The programs will define themselves. Success. They'll have students. They'll graduate students. They'll have opportunities for these experiential opportunities that were mentioned. It's providing the best product we can. We will have to determine some of those metrics, but the fact of the matter is, that's not a decision I'll make. I think the programs will show us who are those programs that are excelling. Now, not all programs can have 1,000 majors. So don't think it's based on the absolute number of majors, because you can look at 1,000 majors and have 200 that are successful, and you can have a program of 100 and have 80 that are successful. So still, look at the success rate there. So I mean, you have to look at all those factors, and I'm just throwing out some potential ways that might be done. There are a variety of other ways that could be done that programs will help us determine as we go forward. But I think what that is pointing to is we can't continue to fund programs where we're not getting maximum benefit out of those, where it's not essentially the best cost-effective way to do that. Education is changing so fast, funding is changing so fast. If you even keep your nose barely in the news, Louisiana is looking at a $300 million cut next year. California is looking over the next 5 years increases of 27% in their tuition. All the universities in Virginia were asked to take 7% cuts over the next 2 years. So basically everybody is looking at, and you can find, just as well as I can, you can find universities where they just absolutely cut programs. I've probably repeated this before, but I was at South Louisiana University in 2008 when the Great Recession happened. We cut of all things the French program in South Louisiana. Not an easy conversation to have, but the fact of the matter, we had to do it based off productivity and what we could leverage out of that. Could we do more of that money somewhere else? I didn't make that decision. The provost and the president made that decision. But I think those are the things we've got to grapple with. These are not things where we will come in, someone's going to come in and all of a sudden you're going to find out about it. Those are discussions that have to happen so that we can make these decisions about those particular programs. That's the best answer I can give you because I don't determine that. We all have a discussion about that and what are the metrics we're going to use in making those decisions. Follow up?
Well, just that you've already defined certain programs as being exempt from any sort of cuts. And so someone clearly is applying a definition of high priority program
And I'm not sure where the definition is coming from. There are resources being reallocated. We all know that student interest is cyclical. Departments, majors you might have a large number 1 year, and then 5 years later the number is down. 5 years after that the number is up. But you've been talking about expanding access to these 80,000 individuals who have not completed their degrees yet. But providing access, doesn't that also include providing access to a diverse educational environment? One where we preserve, not cut majors. One where we add majors and minors rather than cut majors and minors. I mean, what are we offering them when we're offering them additional access? We're expanding their access but reducing the number of courses or reducing the number of majors, reducing the number of degree programs. I mean, aren't those two, aren't we moving actually at cross purposes?
Well, you help me understand that, because when you say, first I want you to define what you mean by diverse programs, and also I want you to help me understand how many programs we can offer, should offer. So let's look at the ledger, what we've got as available dollars, and then let's look at what we can fund. And you tell me, what do we fund and what do we not fund? Because see, that's the dilemma I get, because all of a sudden you're saying we need to increase this program, we need to do that program. In fact, I will tell you that in looking at any program since I've been in the role of Dean of the Graduate School, or currently as the Provost, I've basically said it can't cost us anything. It can't cost us anything. Now you may not like that answer, but the fact is, if you want it to cost something, then I've got to take something from somebody else.
Yeah.
I've got to take something from somebody else in the room to be able to do that. And my concern is that we can't be all things to all people.
And aren't there additional costs involved in online education?
There are. There certainly are.
Don't we recognize that because we actually require students, residential students, to pay more for online education? So is it not the case that online education can cost more than the face-to-face classroom experience?
It can, but if you look across the country, you'll find in a large number of cases the online tuition is no different from the face-to-face because they figured out how to do it. A large majority. That's not the case here.
No, it's not.
I'm not saying we do it right. I'm simply saying that there's a way to do it, and we need to figure out what that is. You're exactly right. We need to figure out the way to do that.
But the present reality is that it's more costly.
$56 a credit hour. You're right. You're right. It costs $168 more to take an online. To have that convenience and sit at home and do that the way you want it, you pay for that convenience. You pay $168 for that convenience.
Exactly. So if we're paying more for it, and yet you're telling us that we're going to have to look at a reallocation of resources, but we're going to expand our online offerings, the money's going to have to come from somewhere. Is it going to come from existing departments? Is it going to come through the cancellation of existing programs? I don't see that as a win for the university.
I can't argue the point with you. I simply have to look at the general ledger, and at the same time, I have to take a business approach and I have to take an academic approach. I don't want to stand here and defend what I do. The university has to make these decisions as a whole. Your deans are involved. Your executive team is involved. Conversation occur with department chairs. I don't know how better to have that conversation and yet not realize that we are in the face of difficult times that will require courageous decisions that we may not all agree with, but will require us to do that so we continue to have air to breathe. I don't know how it's stated. Do I like it? No. Do I wish we had a degree in immunology at this university? You're darn tootin', because that's my background. I'd love to have one. We'll never have one. It's a great degree. You get a job every day with it. We won't have one. Somebody over here had a question. I've seen it pointed several times, and I don't want to overlook them first.
Can I just say something for the record, for the fees, and that's all I want to say?
Okay, all
just
right.
For the record, the fees are not $156 more because the online students have some fees that they do not pay that our land students do pay.
Right.
So just to clarify that only.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Now, back over here, there was a question.
Yes.
Yes.
Very question actually is just to give you the perspective of a faculty member about what you said about the course redesign and possibility of offering these online courses. I was actually asked back in December to be included in the group of faculty that would possibly go to this course redesign project over the semester. And I was shown actually the email in which there was this idea about this possibility, actually this willingness to offer these online genet courses and maybe also some online programs. I tell you that actually in the past I was the one somehow asking the department, hey, why don't we have these genet online courses? Why don't we actually go in that direction? So I'm actually in favor of, I don't think that offering a couple of, more than a couple of online courses will convert the university to an online university, so I'm not really concerned of that. What I'm concerned is that from what I could see from that email is the desire of offering online education, but not really a vision, a thorough vision of what this means. Since if, I was told they pay you $2,000 for actually redesigning that. This is telling me that at least I don't have the feeling that there is understanding indeed, as it was pointed out already, how much it takes to come up with an online course, to design the online course, to create the material, since it is a long step. So, we could actually just I get my own video camera, I get to Dr. Berlin's classroom and videotaping, and then we put on Blackboard. That probably stays within the $2,000 and probably $200. But if we want really a product that actually stands with the level UTC wants to be, we need actually to think much a wider perspective. So we need to, when we say online, it seems we know all what we mean. There are probably thousands of different models of online courses. So the first step is, first of all, to understand what kind of model we want. And then we need to figure out what kind of technology we need to get a technology to create what the content will be in the online course. And then we need to create it, and then we need to run a pilot project. So it takes a lot more. I had a couple of guys coming to my house last week to paint my living room and bedroom, and they took $2,000. So I said, well, I'm spending a couple of semesters building online courses, I'd rather paint my room. Also, if you will, that's the last thing I was saying. I was hired as a math professor, and I spent years to earn a PhD to learn pure mathematics, to teach pure mathematics at a satisfactory level. I don't want them to start from scratch having to learn how to use some kind of software in order to make some slides or some videos. So I would like to see me as a member of a project rather than me with $200 in my pocket trying to figure out everything. So I know we probably have some resources here available. There is an office, or we need to build something larger. But the kind of vision I have of an online education is that I, as a math professor, whenever the Department of Mathematics decides that we want to start offering online section, for instance, for this genet statistics course, which I'm actually teaching, okay, there is a team, and we'll be part of a team with specific, with people that are specialists on designing online courses, and I will be the member that actually teams with them to put the content. Rather than me having, so I know that the World Course Center is offering these tutorials, webinars, that's what I need. I have been attending this last year, in which I was shown how to use Skype, how to use other kind of technology, but that's not what I need. I need to have somebody that has the experience that can guide me. If not, clearly I will say no. So what I could see last month was not enough, was not giving me the idea that there is a vision. Maybe there is, but I would like to understand how you see this.
I just want to make one comment, and I think looking at a vision, how to implement it and do it right and well is critical. And this is a really important discussion and dialogue, but I don't want people to get the idea we're contemplating becoming an online-only university. We're going to build a residence hall with 600 beds and an underground parking garage on the corner of Vine and Houston. You could say that's crazy with the Tennessee Promise, but we want a first-class option to do this right, to get our students on campus and look at a 4-year experience. We just opened a wonderful new library, and the 29th of January we've got the grand opening. We're going to landscape that Chamberlain Pavilion area towards the new library, and it's going to be spectacular. And another summer we will do landscaping on Oak and Vine Streets. this is going to be an absolutely beautiful place to attract students to. That's the core of what we do. And if we build online programs, it's a special niche. It's because we have the expertise. We have faculty who have a great course and are saying now, help me offer it online. I mean, we heard a couple of comments. How do I do it right and do it well? But there is a commitment to face-to-face education, and a bricks and mortar institution, that's part of what we're going to be. And this discussion about what is the right role of online is really important, and we need to have it, and we will. But don't come in with the misconception that that's the only thing we're looking at. How do we do it? How do we engage you? We can work there. But just think of the investments we've recently made with the Student Rec Center. We're going to renovate the Lupton Library. We're working really hard to get that money. Looking at the fine arts renovation. We are not stepping back on what we want to do for face-to-face education. And our money is where our mouth is. We have not made the investments to support online, as was just noted. What do we want to do? How do we fund it? What role does it play? How do we generate revenue? Can it be sustained? There'll be a business plan that will support it. I can guarantee it. And if it doesn't make financial sense, we're worried about being left out if we don't at least get in the game. So The Innovative University by Clayton Christensen is a worthwhile read if people haven't read it. Just to kind of set the state for higher education. Okay.
A number of faculty, probably over 50, have talked with me in the last couple of months about different issues and things, and nobody seems to have the courage to come out and say some of the things that they're thinking that's going on. Some of them say it's not worth their time to come. They're not going to listen to them anyway. But I'm old and cranky and don't have anything to lose. So I'm going to be really blunt and say what is on the mind of a lot of faculty. There is a lack of confidence, a lack of trust in what's going on. This is inherent between faculty and administrators. I'm aware of it because I've been on both sides. But I think it's as acute as I've ever seen it here. And I think it's something that needs directly addressing and being dealt with. It's based on probably many times lack of knowledge, lack of understanding, but it's also based on some various actions that have been taken and some attitudes that seem to be displayed. That it's my way or the highway, or these sort of things is the way people feel. So I'm not offering any solution to the problem, but I think it's something that we need to be honest about and directly address as faculty members and as administrators.
Thank you.
Well, now that I have the challenge to move up from number 6 out of 400, we really are in the School of Nursing very proud of that, and it's been a huge team effort. And I wanted to give you all a little history, and maybe it'll help answer some of the questions, because when I came here 25 years ago, I taught face-to-face. In looking back from the year 2000 to 2006, and we've always had an RN to BSN program, by the way, or concentration. From 2000 to 2006, we looked at that program. And in that 6-year time frame, we had 6 RNs graduate. So the discussion, when it came about that, hey, we need to either change this or stop doing it. Well, about that same time came the national push, which is still going on, for RNs to have as a minimum the bachelor degree in nursing. So we had meetings with community nursing leaders, we had meetings with nurses, we did a community survey, and they said, we want a program that works, but the way you have it now, it does not work for us, because we work 12-hour shifts, 7 to 7. We can't come to campus for a class at any time of day or night. So, in 2007, we implemented our revamped curriculum, and started with 25 students. And we have, since 2007, well actually 2008, graduated over 200 associate degree, and diploma RNs in our community that now have the BSN. Our local healthcare facilities want this. They have been very supportive. They have encouraged the nurses to come and participate in our program. They've invited us in to come and talk. That has all been a big help. Now, how did we do it? Well, we started out hybrid, and I've heard hybrid mentioned a couple times today. Hybrid for us, when you have full-time working RNs that work 12-hour shifts, was we met one Wednesday every third Wednesday, and that was our hybrid. In the meantime, everything else was conducted online. In 2010, we again polled our community, and the community told us, you know, the hybrid works pretty good, but can't we do it all online? So we accepted our last hybrid cohort of RNs last year, and they will be finishing up this coming August. And we are now going to be totally 100% online. And what we saw over the last several years was our hybrid numbers dropping and our online numbers growing. So we have responded to the community, our professional community, that this is what they want, and therefore have got that support. There was a federal grant involved that helped tremendously, but we don't have grant funding anymore. But because of that grant funding, we were able to get the program revamped, started. What kind of special training did I have? Well, I didn't. I went to the Walker Center and worked with them, and they worked with me, and I'd pick up the phone and we'd work over the phone. But it works for us. As a result, the School of Nursing, we came up with best practices for online teaching. And the faculty passed it and said, yes, this is what needs to be done. Now, talking about the retention, what we have learned and what my research has been built on since 2008 is how do you have people in online programs be successful? And that is what I presented on, I published on it. And our program runs from 90 to 95%. We fluctuate somewhat in our retention rate in our RN to BSN program. The national retention is about 45 to 50. So it's been through a lot of study on my part, research, working with the team there at the School of Nursing and trying to figure out what's going to work. And we're now starting our 8th year of this RN to BSN concentration. And I hope that helps some people. Yeah, there's a lot of work, but once you get it in place, it's awesome. And we stay connected. If we didn't stay connected, our students wouldn't stay in the program and finish. I mean, it's just that simple in that respect.
Great. Thank you. Other comments?
There's a lot more to the strategic plan than online education. Okay, then we move on.
Do you have something else you would like to bring up?
Well, I'd really like if we changed "we live in integrity, civility, and honesty" to "we act with." I don't live.
That has gone back and forth and back and forth, and it has been live, it's been act, it's live, it's act, and that's the wrong English, that's not correct, this, that, and the sentiment there was, where it finally landed was, it's not something we act and do, it's who we are. And that's why the word live was finally chosen as the word, whether rightly or wrongly, it was a juggling act, and our English professors can say that might not be the best way to state that, but it was trying to be short and succinct to the point of saying it's who we are, it's not what we do. That's the best answer I can give you, Brian. If there's a stampede to do something different, I guess we'll consider it, but I mean, that's where we are. That's the best answer I can give you. Other comments? Wow, Brian, thank you.
There isn't anything else.
Oh, one more here. Okay, Nancy.
I'm Nancy Badger from Student Development, and I apologize if this is in the draft. I have not had a chance to look at the very last draft. At the last meeting that I was at, we were discussing the area of career planning and where that was at in the document. And we could not remember at that point why it was taken out, and I wondered if we had revisited that at all.
Somebody help me, it's got a copy in front of them. I obviously do not have it memorized. I thought we had included it again, but I could be wrong. We have figured there were words that made that other words that brought that to the forefront. People are reading. Yes? No? We need to look. Okay. We'll follow up on that, Nancy, because I do remember that comment. Wait.
Yes.
Jean, do you?
It's not separately.
Hang on. Sorry.
Jean Dake from Career Center.
The person who should know.
Okay. I've read through this from December 15th, and there is not a separate statement or goal or activity. The only thing that remotely relates is under Goal 1E, ensure availability of exemplary student support services. That's the only thing that I can see that relates. Others may see something else. Again, I'm not on the committee. So.
That's the one I saw at the last meeting. That was there the last time.
Yeah, I think that's where the discussion settled. Because I think the concern was if we start trying to write out every student service, all of a sudden we've got a paragraph of student services we provide, and the idea was that captured all without specifying a particular one or focusing on a particular one. So it was a way to capture everything as opposed to trying to pick one and all of a sudden leaving something out. That was the reason that was done. Thank you, though, for finding that. That's what that was intended for. Brian, this is your last time, Brian. You get 3 chances and go with.
Thumbs up. Mission statement still doesn't say anything about education or learning.
Anybody else on the steering committee here want to speak to that?
I'm on the steering committee.
Anyone else on the steering committee? That was 4, Brian. Remember all the
4. I'll second that. It would be really great to see teaching, learning, education, any one of those words on the values and the mission and the goals on the first page and a half somewhere in here.
I know much thought was given to how that was written. I think you will find folks who will try to debate semantics. In fact, we'll say that, well, learning does encompass teaching. You can't learn without folks teaching, and so you don't need to say teaching. I mean, we get to that point where folks start splitting hairs, and so it's what do you include, what do you not include. So noted, and we've got to discuss. That's right here.
Gerald, when I looked at the draft document that was in color, I found it very difficult to read some of the sections that had a lot of ... And I know there's a term for that, and I'm not a grammatical expert, but it just seemed kind of difficult to read through, just to comment.
Appreciate it. We grappled with that. So noted. So we'll go back and see.
I just had a quick process question, and maybe this was described online, but is the final version voted on by the committee, decided by you, decided by the chancellor when it gets to the final end draft?
It will not be decided by me, nor will it be a decision necessarily of the chancellor. It wasn't a plan that would be voted on. The idea is that through these conversations, we would come to some agreement on consensus about what we're providing so that we're not voting necessarily, but you're voting by being here and stating your comments, because if you look at the first document that was produced versus what we have now, we've gotten comments, and not those comments didn't necessarily actually come through the suggestion box. Some of those came to me, which I immediately sent to Stephanie Rowland, who logged those, and those things got incorporated in the process. we've had comments verbally that have not been stated to us in written form that we've tried to address. My understanding is we're having the discussion right now. We'll take that information back and we will look at what we've got, and from there a determination will be made based on we feel the campus is there. When I say we, you've got a steering committee, and then you've got the chancellor's got to present this to the board. I will tell you that the draft has been looked at by Keith Carver, the president's executive assistant, and at least at this point, can't give us a thumbs up or down that says it looks good where you're headed. It coincides with where the system is going and what we're trying to do. So that's the best answer I can give you, Tom. I don't know beyond that because I don't think there was ever a vote planned, because that's not typically that I've been involved with strategic plans. It's not like you vote. It's a conversation that occurs over a long period of time, so that as you move through that process, you gravitate to where everyone, at least as best possible, can be comfortable. Is there a particular issue, matter, or goal that causes heartburn that needs to be further discussed?
Well, I just didn't know, because in the final writing, like there's been input, say, learning. So, there has to be a person or persons that does the final draft. They could decide, oh, we're going to change these words. And it was just a little mysterious.
Okay,
I
I
understand
understand.
it's complicated.
And one, we try to send that back. Anybody know what steering committee about? We try to send those back to say, provide us your input. We obviously, I sit down with the chancellor, and we have a discussion about some of those things, and that's where some of that language gets incorporated and more to what has been requested. I've heard the comments. I can't say what changes will occur at this point one way or the other, because I haven't had time to contemplate it beyond that, but I don't make those decisions. It's more groupthink than it is anything else. It's not a single person who is doing that. And we work with our consultant in helping us put that together so that it puts us in best light as far as how we present that to not only our constituents here on campus, but beyond our borders, so that the constituents out there read that and understand what we're attempting to do here.
Can I ask a question about 3H, because it's something that I need to deal with as a dean, and most of us do, and that's, we have a lot of great faculty and staff who work very hard and who are going to be working hard to help implement the strategic plan, yet we don't yet have a framework for rewarding those folks. And my concern is, having been at other places, and especially when you're dealing with things like the Tennessee Promise or budget rebalancing or reductions or anything, you tend to have some of your better individuals looking and getting offers. And, we've had, Tennessee, from what I've noticed and studied, is you don't have the big highs and you don't have the big lows. So when you're getting 2% raises and then they go to 0, it makes people who are doing a great job and getting published and doing research and creative activity and lots of committees and teaching well. Look, so do you have an idea yet of where we're going with that, or has there been discussion? Because that's really, looking at both the financial picture and what's the criteria for that reward?
Well, first let's recognize that a strategic plan sets goals. And the purpose of that is so you can discuss those and determine how you're going to get there. And when you say have it's not me. It's just like the strategic plan, it's not me, it's us.
I meant the executive, because it talks about, it says dollars set aside in budget for merit raises.
Exactly, and that's as far as that's gotten to the point that we need to recognize. One of the things we do, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems as we typically budget every dollar we have. In a lot of cases, we don't set aside dollars to be able to do innovative development things, where when I distribute the dollars in academic affairs every year, I've distributed every dollar I have. If all of a sudden a need comes up that's exquisite, unique, there's no way for me to be able to partner with a department head, with a dean, to be able to do those things. So that gets to this bigger issue of how do we reallocate, and I think one of the things we've got to do is have a plan in place, and it's not my plan, we've got to come up with that plan. How much do we set aside? How do we make those decisions? Who makes those decisions? All that has to be decided, so there's a lot of unknowns in the process, but we've set the goal and said we need to put money aside to be able to do that. we put ourselves out there to a certain extent. On a lot of these, we put ourselves out there, say, now, 3 years, 5 years later, everybody has an opportunity to say, yep, just what I figured. Nothing happened, or, wow, they actually meant what they said. But it won't happen without everybody else working here to help us do that in the process. And so it takes another group discussion to be able to come up with those kinds of things. Folks, I did not make decisions about how money was distributed to colleges this year. The deans sat in a room together and I said, how are we going to distribute money? We had a dean who said, I'll forego my priorities so we can take care of this in another college. That's what I'm talking about as far as these discussions taking place. In my previous 3 years here, that was never the case. And that's not to say that the way it was done was wrong. I just don't think that I am the person to solely make those decisions. So I sat down with every dean. Some of the colleges came out ahead of other colleges in that case. But your deans decided what was best. Once again, we've all got to have this conversation. We all have to think about this. So the question you ask is right. The question about online, where are you going to get the money? It's money, 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 money. Every time you turn around, it's money. But we've got to decide how we do that. And you've got to throw darts at us when darts need to be thrown. You've got to say, hey, that was a good job the way you did that. But understand we won't always agree with the way, but we're trying to do it the best we can. So I think that's what we've got. What we come out of the plan with is nothing more than here's where we want to go. Now the question is, how do we get there? How are you going to help us get there? How do we all work together to get there? Because that's what a strategic plan is. It's not about me doing it. It's not about putting it on the shelf. It's simply about how do we all work together to make what we want to realize actually happen. And if your administrators don't ask you those questions and don't provide you the opportunity like we have with the strategic plan to be engaged in those conversations, whether as a department or as a unit, then we've missed the opportunity to get input that could change actually the flavor of the way we go. I don't know how to be any better open to that kind of dialogue than trying to do those things. And that's the approach. So, Jeff, I can't answer your question because I don't know the answer. Because I won't decide that. That's not my role. My role is simply to facilitate those kind of conversations so we can get to that point where we can do what we want to do to be the university we believe we can be. I've got time for one more question, and that's going to be... Hang on just a minute. We've got to have that mic in front of you. You have a booming voice, but for recording purposes, thank you.
So should the strategic plan, can we use the strategic plan as a measurement of the success of our administration? In other words, if you achieve some of these goals, is that a measure of success? If you turn away from some of these goals, ignore them, neglect them, is that a measure of failure? What should the strategic plan be used for?
That is a great question. Because if you think you're going to publish a strategic plan and you're going to carve it in stone and you're not going to do anything in changing over the next 5 years, you have a misperception because, in fact, the strategic plan has to be dynamic. Because what we're setting in place now is the way we understand what will happen and where we need to go. We don't know, though, because for me, I don't have a crystal ball and I can't tell the future. We don't know what's going to happen in September 2015 when Tennessee Promise actually hits. We will have an idea. We don't know what's going to happen out there in 2 years from now relative to funding in the state. So can you measure? Yes. But if we need to modify, that's where this discussion has to reoccur, because I can tell you, previous strategic plans, I'll give you one example. I helped the College of Veterinary Medicine put together a strategic plan for graduate education and research. We had 5 areas that we would do research in. 6 months later, we looked at it. We said, well, we'll still kind of keep 5 areas. 12 months later, we looked at it and said, this one's gone. They still have those same 4. We looked at it every 6 months and said, is this still right? Is this what we need to be doing? So a strategic plan takes a lot of work. It's a roadmap to try to help you know where you're going. But if you say it's cut in stone and we can't jettison something, we're actually could put you at a deficit for something you want to do because the course of philosophy or religion, whatever, has changed. And so, can you measure us? I think we can measure all of us. How do we cooperate to make this happen? How do we work together to make this happen? Do we all understand the constraints that we've been confronted with and why we didn't reach a goal so that it's truly a viable explanation for why we didn't versus somebody didn't do what they were supposed to do or didn't accomplish something that needed to be accomplished. So from that perspective, I think we have to be willing to understand that there has to be tweaking. I'm more than willing to say to you right now, I'm going to do my best to accomplish the goals we got in there, helping faculty in this college, this university reach the goals we need to, and you can measure me against that. But I will tell you also, if something changes out there that is not under my control, then I want you to have at least the understanding that it was out of my control and we had to make a detour, but we had a conversation so you would know. That's all I ask. Fairness. That's all I would ask. It's a great question, though, because I don't think you can carve these in stone because they're not like a Ten Commandments in stone. You have to be flexible because the times change. And now, more than ever, I think we really have to be adaptable because of how the funding changes and how those issues, the government getting involved. I mean, are we going to be regulated and determine what kind of university you are based on a checklist that comes from the government? I don't know. That's the push. It would be a wrong thing to do because we're different from every other university out there. We take a different set of students than other universities out there. You can't compare a checklist of an R1 against us. You can't take a private university that's elite and compare it to a UT. You just can't do that. So we've got to be flexible to be able to address those sorts of things. I apologize. I don't have 13 minutes left. I really have to leave. But I have no problem if we need to continue this discussion. We'll provide that opportunity based on what the input is to do that. But at this point, what we need is your feedback. We've heard words. We've done that. We'll take that into consideration. Trust me, we will not throw anything out at this point. We will look at it and see, does it enhance the quality of the product we've got and make it better. I appreciate your participation and being here today. Thank you.
Talking